Okay, decided to jump into another game with this opponent, and they are playing the same commander, Teysa Karlov, versus Rakdos, the Showstopper. We have a better hand this time around. We have some more lands in play, and we have some spot removal as well. So let's see if we can get something going here. Maybe a Bitter Blossom, I think. Our opponent isn't likely to deal with a Bitter Blossom. And that goes nicely with Skull Clamp as well. So we'll just throw it back over to our opponent and see if they get a super fast start off on us. Because if they do, that might make us think twice about a Bitter Blossom. But they just get in for a Pilfering Imp. So we'll go in for our Bitter Blossom. That will give us chump blockers. But if we manage to get down Teysa and keep Teysa down, then the Fairy Rogues that come in with Bitter Blossom can effectively replace themselves with regards to life. Bitter Blossom, at the beginning of our upkeep, we lose a life and we get a Fairy Rogue token with flying. And Teysa Karlov gives our tokens Vigilance and Lifelink. So if the fairies can deal at least 1 damage each, then they pay for themselves. Yeah, I think I just want to chump with that Fairy Rogue. I want to chump the 3/3 because this is a Rakdos rush build. So we'll just hold up the Path to Exile. I don't think I'm going to use it, but it's there if we need it. Teysa Karlov also causes the death triggers of our creatures to trigger twice, as well as the Vigilance and Lifelink to our creatures, or our token creatures. Okay, Disfigure coming down. Yeah, if they want to use a Disfigure onto the Fairy Rogue, that's fine with me. Rakdos the Showstopper is Flying Trample 6/6 for 6 in Rakdos. And when it enters the battlefield, flip a coin for each creature that isn't a demon, devil, or imp, and destroy the ones that come up tails. Gotten 22 damage onto us so far. We'll get in a Shockland tapped. We definitely don't want to be taking any more damage than we have to. And now our opponent's down to 3 cards. Oh, we've got Bloodghast and Skull Clamp, so that's really good. That's a good out for us if we need one. We'll see if they've got any more removal for us. As you can see, our Fairy Rogue now has Flying, Lifelink and Vigilance. So if we can start to get an army of those down and start swinging in every turn, and that's really good for us. Going for Murder onto the Teysa Karlov. Only 2 cards left in hand now. I think we are at a point where we want to go for Bloodghast. We'll get down Bloodghast, and we will get down and equip the Skull Clamp. That draws us a couple of cards, and then we get into a land. So we'll just go for the plains this time. And yeah, I think we're okay to Skull Clamp again while we still can. We don't know if our opponent is going to do anything about this little combo we've got going on. Just going to leave back the rogue tokens as blockers. Ophiomancer is nice because that will draw removal out of our opponent's hand. I doubt they want to see a black snake token with Death Touch on the field. And that goes really great with Skull Clamp as well, because we can kill the snake on our turn, and then the snake will come back at the beginning of our opponent's upkeep. But they are revealing, or we're revealing our hand to them, and they choose a non-land card and force us to discard it. They choose to get rid of Vindicate. I think we're okay to get down Ophiomancer for now. And then we'll Skull Clamp. And a Damnation is nice to get into. We'll get Skull Clamp on the Ophiomancer. And then we'll swing in with the Fairy Rogues, because we're going to have a snake, hopefully, to block the Mog Flunkies with, and they can only attack or block with another creature. So unless our opponent has a Haster, they can't actually swing in with Mog Flunkies. Okay, Heartless Pillage. Target opponent discards 2 cards. And we'll just discard 2 lands. And they're down to 1 card in hand. Let's get down the Verdant Catacombs. We'll definitely get back our Bloodghast, and then I think it's time to get down Teysa Karlov now, because we have plenty of tokens that we wouldn't mind swinging in with. And then we'll go to combat and swing in with everything. And then instead of Skull Clamping, I think I'd rather hold up Path to Exile. Are we going to see a Rakdos, do we think? Yeah, I think we are, so I'm actually just going to change my mind here. We'll go for Scrubland. And we will kill the Bloodghast. Draw some more cards while we still can. And then what do we want to ditch here? Just 1 card. We've got a couple of swamps in hand, so we'll get rid of that. And down comes Rakdos the Showstopper. Going to flip some coins and see what comes up tails, see if they can blow anything up here. Okay, they get rid of a bunch of fairy tokens and our Teysa. I think I will wait on a Path to Exile until our opponent's next turn. So why don't we go... Yeah, and the reason we're going to wait for that is because it will bring the land in tapped and they won't be able to make use of it next turn, which minimalises the downside of Path to Exile a little bit. How about we just go for a Worm Coil Engine. We can start trying to gain some life back with that. We'll put the Skull Clamp onto Ophiomancer, just in case it gets blown up. And then a stop on our opponent's upkeep allows us to Path to Exile. We might as well go in with the Snake because our opponent isn't going to block it. And we can block the Mog Flunkies with the Worm Coil Engine. At the beginning of our opponent's upkeep, we get rid of Rakdos. They'll be able to search for a basic, but it does come into play tapped. So unless they can generate 2 mana now, we're not going to see Rakdos this turn. Guildmage's Forum comes down, and they cast themselves a Dusk Legion Zealot, which is the black elf that draws you a card. I can't remember what that card's called. And also a Vengeful Rebel. Enters the battlefield if a permanent you control left the battlefield this turn. Target creature an opponent controls gets -3/-3 until the end of the turn. I think they did that on a Fairy Rogue. Yeah, they targeted a Fairy Rogue token with that. Teysa is 8, I think. It is. So let's go 6, 7, 8. Yeah, we have to tap out for that, unfortunately. Let's go for Skull Clamp onto Bloodghast. Draw even more cards. Alright, good to get into Toxic Deluge. We can now play our land, and Bloodghast will come back. Say yes to that. I actually want to just get down the Zulaport Cutthroat instead. And then we'll swing in with a Fairy Rogue and a Worm Coil Engine. And we'll gain ourselves some life with that. And then how's about a Hangerback Walker for 4 mana, so 2 counters. Then we'll get Skull Clamp onto the Snake. That will deal a bit of damage to our opponent with Zulaport Cutthroat, and the Snake will be regenerated with Ophiomancer next turn. Yeah, we'll put the Skull Clamp onto the Ophiomancer. This way, if our opponent gets down Rakdos next turn, which they can afford, if they blow up some of our stuff like Worm Coil Engine and Hangerback Walker, we'll be left with some tokens at least. We're back up to 25 life, so I'm not feeling too bad about our position right now. We've also gotten into Massacre Worm, which can get rid of a couple of creatures from our opponent's side of the field. Down comes Rakdos again. Oh, and they get rid of a lot of our stuff there. That triggers Zulaport Cutthroat 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. They get rid of Wormcoil Engine and Hangerback Walker. Unfortunately, Teysa wasn't in play. Otherwise, all of those would have been doubled up. But luckily not getting rid of Zulaport Cutthroat. So let's block that with a Lifelinker. And we get to ping our opponent again. We get another Snake token thanks to Ophiomancer, another token thanks to Bitter Blossom. And I think a board wipe should do it here. Let me just check the Zulaport Cutthroat. Whenever the Cutthroat or another creature you control dies, each opponent, yeah. So all it takes then is a Damnation. And that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 triggers. And there we go, get our opponent down to 0. Yeah, so we had a bit more luck that time around. Last game, we didn't really have any mana until later on when we got into Soul Ring and Mana Crypt, but this game, of course, we got into much more mana, and the Bitter Blossom against a Rakdos opponent is really good because it gives us blockers, potential Lifelinkers if we can keep Teysa on board, which we didn't really manage to do this game, and it's not really something that our opponent can deal with in Rakdos because it is an enchantment. So much better luck for us this time around, and didn't make a painful mistake this time either. So good game to our opponent. That was Rakdos versus Teysa on Tribalkai on the EDH channel. Thank you for watching.